Hello everyone. I know I've spoken about assessment before, but I want to speak about it again because we have to do it. We have to see whether our learners should pass or fail. So we set them up for failure. We make them remember hundreds of relatively meaningless facts. Then we give them a time limit, induce stress, make the conditions appalling, and tell them to do their best, that their futures depend on their performance in that moment. And we throw the word failure around to encourage them to do well. Teachers think that our work is to teach the curriculum, make the children memorize facts, and then mark tests that offer right or wrong answers, with ticks. We believe that teaching and assessing are two very separate things. Isn't there something in all of this that sounds wrong to you? Of course we have to assess. It's an important part of the teaching and learning process. It helps teachers to understand the learner's knowledge, their strengths and weaknesses, and determines whether they pass or fail. Actually, it influences more than just the pass or fail status of our learners. It affects the children themselves, the teachers and the parents, the staff of the schools, and then spreads out to affect curriculum design, policymakers, and even national government. My point is not against assessment. It's a battle cry against the way that we are doing it. Because currently, most of our assessment is based on the child's ability to remember facts in the fastest possible time, which is one of the lowest levels of Bloom's taxonomy. It's an inauthentic indication of the child's ability and potential. Shouldn't we strive to make our assessments a part of the learning process so that they become one thing, curving in a beautiful spiral instead of two separate events? What would happen if we moved our assessments from ticks to tasks? Tasks that ask the learners to apply their learning in new and meaningful ways. Tasks that invite the learners to think critically and to use this thinking to problem solve in real-world situations that have significance and make sense. What would happen if we took away the question paper written in silence and invited children to produce portfolios, posters, work on projects, or write journals? Learners could be invited to apply complex thinking, planning, investigation, analysis, collaboration, and playfulness to situations that could actually be a part of the real world. They could demonstrate their growing understanding in many different ways as they grapple with problems, fail, try again, resolve, experiment, and finally produce. They could learn while they are thinking, planning, doing, and performing. They could learn from each other. They could teach each other. They could, in fact, go way beyond what our limited teaching could give them. When I taught in the primary school, I was teaching an art lesson on texture and used dinosaurs as an example. A grade 4 child interrupted me to tell me that I had incorrectly named a kind of dinosaur. He launched into descriptions of different kinds of dinosaurs that were astounding and that had the other children asking questions and wanting to know more. It completely derailed my art lesson. But the children learned more about dinosaurs that day than I could ever have taught them. When children are appropriately challenged in meaningful assessment techniques, they are practicing higher order thinking skills and multiple methods of knowing that will be preparing them for their entry into the real world, where they will be able to transfer their knowing in practical and significant ways. It's about how they use the knowledge, and not just that they have it. It's about whether that learning has value beyond the classroom. Our learners are not just little emptinesses waiting for us to fill. They come with all sorts of skills, knowledge, aptitudes, and interests. With authentic, meaningful assessments, we tap into these. We invite them to explore and experiment with the possibilities of the real world. And we already know that that world is going to be a changing one that is driven by speed and technology. We already know that we can't know what it's going to be like. We know that we have no idea. And here we are, educating children so that they can take their place in that world. Even we, who claim to know so much, have no idea what to do about climate change. We have failed to regulate artificial intelligence because we never really thought about it. And now it has already invaded our living spaces and tracks our lives with cookies and cameras. Sentient robots are almost a reality. We live with the threat of nuclear war and the possibility of life on Mars. And even we don't know. Yet as teachers, we have to prepare our learners. Telling, testing, and ticking is just not going to work anymore. We have an unemployment statistic that is frightening because the majority of our population has been failed by their own education systems. We have not taught to problem solve in real world terms or to think critically. We have simply taught to remember facts. And knowing the capital city of Pakistan is not something a future employer is going to ask about, ever. I promise. When we think about assessment, there are three very important considerations. What are we assessing? Why are we assessing? And who are we assessing? We have to start thinking about the real purpose and value of education, and that includes the real purpose and value of assessment. We have to make choices that go beyond the simplest, the easiest, and start thinking about the most meaningful. Teaching is not just any old job. Please think about what I'm going to say. Teachers are actually the architects of the future. And wise teachers could use effective and meaningful assessment strategies to learn about their students. We could learn what the students need to know. We could guide them to that knowing. We could really be preparing our learners for the future. Assessment should not only be used to test what the children already know. Assessment could develop that learning, contribute to it, and be an integral part of it. If we ourselves can learn to be more authentic in our assessments, we can take a step towards the authentic preparation of our learners to face, confront, and conquer their future lives and worlds. One last word. Meaningful assessment is hard work for teachers. We have to understand its significance and be prepared to put in the time and develop the expertise. But we can do this. If we were the kinds of people who chose easy over effective, we would never have become teachers in the first place. And the world would be a lot poorer because it would not have people like you to guide its future generations. And you do, you know. Take care of yourselves. I will see you again.